If you've spent more than 5 minutes on the internet at any point in time between now and the beginning of November, you might have heard this little tune.
It's a murder on the dance floor, but you better not kill the groove.
Sophie Ellis-Bextor's Murder on the Dance Floor is a disco pop ditty released to charting success in 2001, and coincidentally, it acts as the glittering cherry atop everyone's new favorite Don't Bring Your Parents to See This cinematic hit, Saltburn. Directed by Emerald Fennell and starring the always smoldering Jacob Elordi and always delightfully weird Barry Keoghan, the film follows a seemingly innocent Oxford student who befriends the heir to an old country estate. They bond, spend the summer at the castle, and that's where things really begin to unravel. Like a fictitious trickster in a nighttime fable, Keoghan's character, Oliver Quick, weaves his way in between the family until each of them has passed away or been picked off, leaving him the sole owner of the estate. Before the credits roll, we will watch as Oliver dances naked around the manor to Sophie Ellis-Bextor's song. And that's it. What else is there to say about this movie? Some people love it, some people hate it. It's very colorful and full of shocking moments, and there's always going to be people who will say that it's trying too hard, or it's fine that it's trying too hard, but I didn't like the parts that were too try hard, that kind of thing. Some people have said that it comes off as classist, and I don't know, I didn't get that vibe myself. I just I thought that the Eat the Rich narrative was just it was a very specific part of it, and there are so many other movies, or not so many others, but quite a few other movies that have delved into that and made it more of the focal point, whereas it was a bit more of the texture of the thing, you know what I mean? So I get all that, and when I was watching it myself, I just thought that the class narrative was more supplemental, because the focus is really Oliver and Felix and the family, mainly Oliver. In an interview with LA Times, director Emerald Fennell said, "Saltburn is about a lot of things: class, desires unquenched, obsession, and a summer vacation at a sprawling upper-crust estate where things are certain to fall apart." Discussing the fact that the Gothic country thriller setting is nothing new, Emerald also said that tropes are great. It's a shorthand. They create a world, they put you in the frame of mind, and then you can slowly undermine it. So there it is. Saltburn is a narrative laced with tropes and themes, a modern Gothic tale set in the near past. So, what about it has become so pivotal for some people? One of the things that stuck out to me was the theme of obsession. Typically, especially from the in-depth lower-class, upper-class disparity flicks that have come out since the pandemic, there's a plot device that sticks through the film, like the food angle from The Menu, or the cruise ship and eventually the island in Triangle of Sadness. Granted, the manor of Saltburn itself sort of becomes a character for a majority of the movie, but again, it's more of an atmospheric placeholder to keep the characters in for the plot, like a game board, and to add the ominous atmosphere one normally looks for in Gothic fiction. This then becomes a backdrop to Oliver's story and subsequent pursuit of Felix and his family. In Saltburn, Felix becomes the center point of Oliver's fascination. Because he's cool and everyone sort of flocks around him, mimicking the awkward poor kid becoming entranced by the suave rich boy's charm trope like in The Talented Mr. Ripley. In said film, Ripley is poor, befriends Dickie Greenleaf, who is rich and lives a lavish lifestyle, and eventually Ripley kills him, somewhere in the psychotic state between obsession and hatred. Where the stories differ is in Ripley's consistent evading of authorities following Dickie's death, much akin to a thriller. In the end, Ripley has to kill yet another romantic partner because someone recognizes him. The message is simple: our obsessions and our lies catch up to us. As Saltburn's story unfolds, we are given a plot twist, and again, some people liked it, some people really didn't like it, but that's not what we're talking about. During the first half of the film, it's assumed that Oliver comes from a broken home and that his father died. All info he's freely given to Felix. In hindsight, I guess I should have seen something like this coming, like the whole thing being set in the years just before the explosion of social media and the use of smartphones to leave a little room for surprises, because the twist, of course, is that Oliver actually comes from a decent middle-upper class family and not a bunch of broke drug addicts. Had this taken place any time after 2009, Felix would have found out this shit immediately. But anyway, this twist got a lot of feathers ruffled because, why does Oliver care about living with these rich people if he's already got a decent home? And doesn't that make his motivation less dynamic if he's just a rich kid trying to get richer? I understood those arguments and at first found myself suddenly at odds with the story because how am I going to connect with the protagonist now? Had Oliver's story remained true, that his father died from an overdose and his mother is a drug addict, wouldn't that have made his bid to overtake the family's estate more interesting? It didn't take long for this twist to grow on me though, especially as the final third of the movie played. Already we know that Oliver is being deceptive, manipulating Elspeth, Venetia, and Farley as best as he can. But Felix's discovery of his true origins sheds a different light on all of that. We know that the story is about obsession, but with a deeper look, we can also see that it's about perfection. As the ending progressed, I couldn't get rid of this inner feeling that this movie wasn't reminding me of eat the rich narratives like The Menu, but rather movies that center the struggle of obsessive artists. Black Swan is an overused but good example. Nina is a ballerina. Her company is doing a new production, and it's her chance to step up and prove she has what it takes to be the Swan Queen. As the plot goes on, we see her obsess over the precision, the execution. She's nailed the white swan, but not the black swan, and it's a constant struggle with her controlling mother, the company director, and her own paranoia involving the new understudy, which ultimately morphs into a physical manifestation of the fact she's also keeping herself from reaching perfection, from attaining the desire and adoration for achieving one of the most desired roles in her life. But can that really be compared to Saltburn, even remotely? Maybe it's a stretch, but rather than being an obsessive artist, we can see Oliver as not obsessing over perfecting a specific craft or ability, but rather perfecting life the way he views it as perfect for Felix. The large house he seemed somewhat dismissive over as he walks him through, the desire every girl on campus has to be with him. Oliver could have all of it and not treat it as passively as Felix does. So what do the films Black Swan or The Talented Mr. Ripley or even something like Whiplash always have to say about obsession? The general consensus are the stories always act as warnings. Nina is wounded and I guess basically dies at the end of Black Swan. Andrew reaches catharsis at the end of Whiplash after a relationship fell apart and having to put up with constant humiliation and abuse. Ripley has to either kill or lie to whoever he cares about in order to keep up appearances. So what do all of these say? Obsession is a bad thing. It breaks you, it eats you up, or it's the only way you become successful at something and you're going to get hurt or have to hurt other people to get there. And that's normal. That's a very tough thing in life a lot of human people experience and have to go through, which is why we find these stories so compelling. But this is where Saltburn truly shines, and I think the little thing that hit the spot in so many people's brains. Despite the shocking scenes, the gorgeous characters, and intricate detail applied to mid-2000s era style clothes, there's an underlying satisfaction to the whole story, and it all ties back to Murder on the Dance Floor. Rather than wallowing in the guaranteed gloom a story about obsession normally portrays, Emerald Fennell decides to spin the narrative on its head and, for once, give the protagonist a little fun instead. Ollie offs Felix first, and then Farley gets kicked out and he kills Venetia. Then the dad dies. I forgot his name. Anyway, and finally he takes out Elsbeth after convincing her to sign the deed of the house over to him. And finally, we make it to the final scene, getting to watch Ollie dance alone in the manor, celebrating his victory of picking off Felix's family. And it's a little morbid and a little messed up, but there's cute music playing. The film is celebrating Ollie's victory, rather than using it as an ominous warning. We're still in award season, and it's not like it's the #1 Oscar pick for the year. It was just shocking. Had Jacob Elordi, so obviously young people were gonna watch it, get all gagged, and then make memes about it on social media. But that doesn't change the fact that it's well made, well acted, colorful, and meticulously crafted. Honestly, every time I see it, there's a little detail I missed, or something one of the characters does that kind of pops out to me, which makes repeat viewings fun. Should the film fare well in awards, I wouldn't be upset. I just know it's going up against, well, you know.
Looking for my lip gloss and my liner. Looking for me, told him meet me at the diner. Got him smiling cause you know I outshine her. Had the pepper just to remind.
Anyways, if it isn't obvious, I love this movie, which makes reviewing it in a practical manner a little difficult, but I truly do find the playful ending contrasting the morbidity of the final act to be creative and noteworthy decision. Film is a fictitious medium. Regardless of moral authority, it's always important to remember our escape from reality doesn't always have to be taken seriously. The same can be said for Saltburn and Ollie's tricky but entertaining rise to owner of the estate. And along the way, we get some deliciously tasty sequences.